What's up, Internet? It's me, the identified person that talks to you when MES does things. I'm here to give you my very first unsolicited opinion because I've got a lot of them. I think in my last video I talked about how basically I'm really harsh critic of everything. I generally don't like things. But this time I wanted to give you sort of a clickbaity title and a reason to listen to what I have to say, to maybe give the other side of that, maybe the somewhat more humanitarian side of my criticism. And so today's video is the BS or the bullspit of SJW culture in mainstream media and film. And while I think that this video is about that, I think that there are some caveats to what I'm talking about. So first of all, I feel like I have to define what these things are. So what is SJW, right? SJW is an abbreviation that has been coined by people who actually hate social justice in their media that they consume, right? SJW is not something that social justice warriors go around identifying themselves as, right? This is a phrase that has been coined by the other side, to identify that which they generally do not want to see, in their media. And I find this to be somewhat strange, Oh, and by the way, before we go on, let's say that, let's go on to identify what social justice warriors are, even if they don't identify themselves. They are those that basically are in a position of at least some kind of privilege to advocate for those who are not so privileged, advocate for representation, for equality, for equity on the basis of gender, sexuality, race, age, mental capacity. Basically it's what it amounts to. It's they're advocates. But again, the other side has sort of turned this phrase into into something of a mockery, and then they're real mad about it. Guys like, there's this guy who's like shadow banned on Twitter, from the Quartering, Jeremy from the Quartering. I don't know if you've ever heard of that guy, but he's mad. Him and all his followers are like super mad about it. And all it has to do is conflict with their narrative, with their personal narratives, like a little bit. Somebody who may identify a hero of theirs to be worthy of their praise. If we find out that that person has committed something that is less than scrupulous, the SJWs are going to come for us, and they're going to come with their cancel culture, and it's all a big mess, and we're really upset about it, right? So that's to me, that's what SJW culture is. It's the canceling of SJWs, because I think that if you're really an advocate, you're concerned with the humanity of it, that the humanity of whatever it is that you're advocating for is paramount. You care about people. You're not so much concerned about people's opinions and how they digest media. You're not worried about the plight of Tony Stark being diminished by some feminist movement somehow. Those are just things that don't enter your consciousness, right? So I'll start by sort of pointing out what the problem or what the bullspit of SJW culture is. And I think the bullspit, really what it amounts to, is a hypocrisy. It's this big hypocrisy. Lately, you can find any number of criticisms of SJWs, whether it be the advocacy for representation in media for the transgendered or race. They're gonna come after you, but what's odd to me about it, the bullspit of it, is that this has always been part of storytelling. Storytelling is basically the art of connecting with your audience. in some way that is pertinent both in real life and this artistic telling. Advocacy has been a part of that since David and Goliath. If there was, sure, bad versus good is an old story, and I think that a lot of the storytellers today are starting to get into the nuance of what the significance of that is. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to. It's little guy versus big guy, and it seems like there really hasn't been a problem when it was like little white guy versus big white guy, big bad white guy. Literally, the Lord of the Rings, like if you like the Lord of the Rings, the thing is just filled with advocacy. You're talking about hobbits. You're talking about these tiny things that no one notices coming up and saving the world. Basically, that no one else would think anything else of, and saving the world. And what's that line? Near the end with the Witch King, no man can kill me, and then this woman is like, I'm not a man, but nobody's like complaining about that, right? Like nobody's complaining that there's this social justice component to the Lord of the Rings, right? There are other stories that are even more popular that try even less to hide their symbols. Star Wars. Star Wars has stormtroopers. George Lucas didn't come up with the name Stormtrooper. You know what I mean? That is, and do you think all that Nazi imagery is accidental? Even the new one, even Force Awakens, is full of Nazi imagery. They basically just stopped short of the Heil Vader. But it's basically what it is. He didn't come up with the name Stormtrooper. It's this Gestapo police in Nazi Germany. It's exactly what the Stormtroopers are. There's literally no difference. I wonder if those guys had really bad aim. It would be, can you imagine today, like the Avengers going up against a race of beings that were referred to as the Proud Boys? Like how many people would lose their minds? But like, it's okay with Star Wars, and I don't really know why. Like, I don't know why people insist that you can't tell this story, that you can't have these parallels as if they're not happening, And a lot of people, I have seen guys like Tyrone Magnus say, I just don't want it shoved down my throat. We don't want this SJW stuff shoved down my throat. And that's another thing that I don't really get. And I'm making this quote from Tyrone Magnus in reference to actually he was talking about The Last of Us Part 2. Now, this is a complaint that a lot of people have, and I think really unfairly so. Am I a Last of Us Part 2 fan? Yes. Do I think it's a good game? Yes. I enjoyed it very much. Do I think it's a bad story? Not by any stretch of the imagination. Every criticism of that story has been, basically this nitpicking of details that in actual storytelling are completely inconsequential. Well, if this happened, and why didn't this happen? And if he wanted to do this, and how come he's demonstrating all these other characteristics that are completely foreign to us, and we're just unsure. It's a pseudo-intellectualism. Because there's just certain things in storytelling that, like, they matter, but they kind of don't matter. These are the same people that, in horror movies, why is she running up the stairs instead of running out the front door? I was like, well, the movie would be over then. That it's, and I would beg this question. It's as if they believe that in life, every decision that they make is the exact right decision, and then under intense scrutiny, under duress, they just always make the right decision. These are not things that that happen in real life. I don't know why they expect them to happen in stories, and so getting back to Tyrone Magnus's point, where he says, why is it being forced down our throats? The thing that he's referring to is this character in The Last of Us, and if you haven't played it, too bad you're listening to me. Being a trans character, right? Like one of the main characters is, according to some people, is a trans character. Thing is, I'm not entirely sure that character is a trans character. I mean, it could be. I mean, there's a high likelihood that she is. But the thing is, they don't make any kind of really stark reference to that. I mean, it is not explicitly said. The only thing that is, sort of, I guess you could say somewhat noticeable, is that she has these really broad shoulders. But again, there are women out there with really broad shoulders, and actually that's explained in the plot. She's a character who's frustrated by her lack of strength, and so she gets strength, and it's apparent in her appearance. And to be fair, later on in the game, she is actually lacking in strength. She's become weak, and so that figure is kind of gone. She's completely emaciated, and she no longer represents that physicality. So I don't really know, but I think that some leaks got out. The character maybe has a broad chin. But again, I don't see why it matters, because if you're saying it's being forced down your throat, like how, there's no indicator there's no outright indicator that this character is what you say they are. Is the depiction with the broad shoulders like this forceful act that you just cannot stand? Is the depiction with kind of a broad chin? Is that I don't understand. I really don't understand how that takes away from the experience. I mean, you run into people in your daily life every day. Every day they serve you your coffee. They're serving you drinks. You serve them. Who are both trans, and you don't know, you can't tell at all, and who are not trans, and who may look ambiguous. We live in this world where like not everybody is this cookie cutter version of one another, and for them to be so upset about it. So this is where the real BS gets into. It's this hypocrisy, this giant hypocrisy of, especially the quartering. They get real mad over what being criticized for being white men, right? Because white men are definitely getting the shit end of the stick right now, and it's because white men have ran everything for a long time, and white men get depicted as heroes and villains and all manner of things. They get that, they have gotten that preference for a long time, So I think they take offense to that. And really it isn't a slight against them, but there's the hypocrisy is where they are criticized in this way, and then all of a sudden they want to cancel it, and this cancel culture that they say they hate, that they are just so vehemently opposed to, they're a part of it, and they don't realize, like, get Brie Larson out of here, they want to cancel her, and they don't get that they're every bit as rigid in their thought as this kind of imaginary SJW. So I think that's kind of the bullspit. And I say bullspit even though I said shit earlier. And so, and this is the same kind of culture, and this is sort of a tangent for me, and I just figured I'd drop it right now, but this is the same kind of culture that these guys have, that they're nitpicky about something. I don't know if they think that Star Wars is about these few characters and like that's all it's about. It's ridiculous, or if they think that when they watch a movie, all they're watching are characters on a screen that aren't supposed to connect to anybody. But I don't understand why it always has to make like perfect sense to them. Because they don't get mad about other things, like they'll get mad at Star Wars. They won't outright say why. They'll just say something like, there's no gravity right there at that point. I don't know why those bombs would be falling like that. If there's no gravity field, and it's a vacuum of space, would they really explode with that kind of velocity? And you'd be, see, all these things, they don't matter, because you're not nitpicking the fact that if you lit up a lightsaber, that lightsaber would not only burn your face off, but probably burn down your city block, just igniting it, or the fact that technically the Millennium Falcon shouldn't even be able to fly in the atmosphere. Like, nobody cares about that. Everybody's like in their childhood about it. Everybody's like, well, it's my childhood and it's sacred. Yeah, because it's a story, idiot. And it's the same thing with every other facet that exists now in terms of like these social justice warriors. And and the very, very last thing is, I don't understand why you wouldn't welcome the psychological implications of having characters that are just different from you, or different from a lot of us, in your storytelling. Just for variety's sake. I'm not even talking about representation, which I think representation is important, but just for the sake of variety, like just having a female protagonist. These guys were literally going, I don't know what the big deal is having Captain Marvel. They're talking about the first and the first and the first. Yeah, it was Marvel's first solo female movie. That's what they were saying. But it was the first. What about Ellen Ripley from the Alien series? Talking about a protagonist that is 40 years old. Like, that's your last frame of reference for, like, and like that's good enough for them. Like, they just go, we already had Ellen Ripley, why do we need another one? Why, and you're like, really? Just from a storytelling standpoint. That's why Miles Morales is both black and Puerto Rican, right? He's not just black, he's black and Puerto Rican. So he's got some things to deal with there. He's got quite a lot to deal with, that those are issues of identity, and that's all storytelling really is their stories of identity. And that's why every single movie is always a question of identity. Every single protagonist goes through this story, goes through this journey of self-discovery, and it's not always pretty, and so when you bring into the fray, when you bring into storytelling other characters that have other battles that maybe I might not have to fight, then that's something I haven't seen, and I think that's interesting, and that's just the storytelling standpoint, and I can't even imagine from the representation standpoint of people who get to look at the screen, see themselves, and go and have that childlike wonder. I remember when I was a kid and my family, we were sitting around watching the movie Scarface, and we're Hispanic, family, and there's a scene where Al Pacino starts speaking Spanish, and he's speaking, he's trying really hard, he's doing okay, but it's not great. But when he started speaking Spanish, I remember me and my whole family were like, hey, like, he's not even Mexican. The Mexicans, like, we're not even Mexican. Like, we made it, but just the representation, just seeing yourself, just seeing any part of yourself in something like a big movie like that, it's kind of a victory, So if you're against that, I mean, you are literally proving these people right. You're proving people like the trans community right. All marginalized people, you're proving them right, because their message is this: we are not being seen, we are not being heard. That is the message of the minority, of the marginalized. And your response is to say, we don't want to see you, we don't want to hear you.